So the first word that comes to mind when you're thinking about confusing aquarium terms or words that have different meanings between different people is flashing. Now, when I learned what flashing meant, it meant that a fish was swimming, through an aquarium, an aquascape or whatever, and it was kind of rubbing its body up against an object. So it would be swimming around and it would kind of whoosh, flash up against that. All right. And it would kind of do that quick motion, and it meant that it was itching its body, or maybe it has something wrong with its slime coat or whatever if it's doing a lot. But a lot of fish just do that every now and then. Now, flashing can also mean, like in rainbow fish terms, when it's like lighting up, when they're flaring up, or when they're turning on, when they're turned on. That's another one. You may hear someone says that a fish is turned on. It means that their colors are showing a lot. Now, people use flashing interchangeably, from what I've seen, between those two meanings, which is the flashing up against stuff, or flashing as in like they're swimming and they're turning on their colors. Okay, so first word, flashing. What do you guys think that means? What have you heard? Let me know in the comments. Our next aquarium term is buried. Now, we're not talking about something being stuck under the gravel or being covered up under the sand. No, we're talking about pregnant shrimp. Now, what? Buried. Yes, that means that a shrimp has moved her saddle, which is our next word, down to her pleopods, and at that point has been done the magic deed and is now pregnant. All right, and what they're doing is they're using their pleopods, swimmerettes, whatever you want to call them, basically their little wavy bits under their body, and they're juggling a bunch of little eggs. So basically, their legs are up here and they have these like little flaps, and they have all these eggs, and you'll see them kind of moving them. And if you look in there, it almost looks like there's some weird, funky alien creature in there, but no, that's actually the babies. And that shrimp is buried. On the topic of shrimp, we have a saddle. Now, you're not gonna go riding a shrimp around, are you? No, you are not. But a female shrimp has a spot right on the back of what I guess you would consider their neck, and it kind of has like a golden color. And in certain shrimp species, I'm sure it'll be different colors, but for the most part it'll be like a gold color in all the common ones. And you'll see basically that's where they store their eggs. But a shrimp that has a saddle is a female shrimp that is not pregnant. So a saddled shrimp, I guess, I don't know if people use that term like that, but a saddle is where they store the eggs. All right, guys, so our next term is really not a word, but it's more of an abbreviation. CPD. Now, what does that mean? When I would hear people talk about this, I was so confused when I first started getting into the hobby. I just hear CPD. What is this? It's an amazing fish that's got amazing coloration, but what is it? The celestial pearl danio. Now, there's a bit of confusion around this fish. Now, I guess at a point, this fish used to be described as a rasbora, or there was confusion when they were naming the species. So it used to be called the galaxy rasbora. There are certain people that still refer to the fish as such, just because that's the word that they use. They were raised into the hobby with it, and they refuse to change, and that is totally fine, whatever. But from what I understand, the species is officially a celestial pearl danio. CPD. Now, that used to confuse me, and I would just love to clear that up for some other people out there, because I know it was something that was just elusive. It was like this amazing fish that's perfect for nano aquascapes, and then you can't even find it because you're like, what is a CPD? A celestial pearl danio. Now, this next term definitely threw me off when I was first starting in the hobby. I was watching a lot of live streams and a lot of videos about fish, and they all referred to like Livebearer disease, okay? And I was really confused, like what that was. I'm like, is that a specific type of fish, a Livebearer? But I would hear Livebearer disease, and then I associated, the Livebearer, and then people would talk about my favorite Livebearers, and then all this stuff, and I was like, what is a Livebearer? But anyways, it means to give live birth, a fish that gives live birth. Okay, so it's not dropping eggs around the aquarium, it's dropping babies. So that's like guppies, mollies, platies, goodeids. There's a bunch of fish that give live birth out there, and those are what they're referring to. So it's just a whole type of birthing process, and basically they just don't drop eggs. When you finally learn that, you're like, oh wow, it makes so much sense, but it's something that a beginner has so much information around, and they're intaking so much that when they hear that Livebearer, it doesn't really click. But that's what it means, guys. Giving live birth. Any fish that gives live birth is a Livebearer. All right, here's another term for you too. Aquascaping. Now this is a pretty basic one, but I figured if there's beginners watching this video, what is this? Aquascaping is basically when you take a fish tank and treat it like your front yard or your backyard. You're gonna landscape your front yard or your backyard, right? You're gonna create bricks and pathways and a beautiful piece of art out of your yard. Well, that's what aquascaping is. You're gonna take your fish tank and turn it into a beautiful piece of art with plants and hardscape, all right? Hardscape is another word. What does that mean? Hardscape is basically the sticks, the rocks, the stuff that isn't live plants that are in your aquarium. Hardscape can even refer to, I guess, artificial weird decorations. If you have like one of those, like a fake, I don't know, little character, I guess that would technically be hardscape. But really, when you're talking about hardscape, you're referring to aquascaping, and you're referring to the wood and the sticks and the stones, everything that you use in your aquarium. That's what hardscape is. And then aquascaping is putting plants and hardscape together to create a piece of art in your aquarium. Okay, so we're just rapid firing some terms here, and we're gonna try to get as much information out in this video. Now, I think that another thing that could be confusing for a beginner aquarist is high tech versus low tech. What is that mean? What does that mean? All right, what does high tech versus low tech even mean? To me, I think that these terms are kind of in relation to the person that's hearing them. To me, a high tech tank would be someone that's running CO2 with an extremely expensive planted LED light, something that they didn't just, cheap out on. They spent a couple $100s on a really, really nice light. They're running CO2. They're running a substrate that has a lot of nutrients in it, such as like an ADA aqua soil or something like that. That's a high-tech tank. A low-tech tank, to me, would be someone that's running a basic substrate. I would even think that could, dirt. Dirt is a high nutrient substrate, but I would still consider that a low-tech tank as long as they're running, a cheaper light. They're not running CO2. CO2 to me is the defined definition between high-tech and low-tech. If you're running CO2, you're definitely a high-tech setup. If you're not running CO2, you're more than likely a low-tech setup, although I think you can get pretty well into a high-tech setup with a non-CO2 system if you're running maybe a sump, or you're running a canister filter with a really high-end light on some ADA soil, and maybe that's a high-tech setup. But it really just kind of depends. If you just throw a general definition of what high-tech versus low-tech is, I would say that if you're spending a lot of money on it, it's probably high-tech. If you're spending the average amount, it's probably low-tech to average. That's pretty much it. All right, guys, I think that's enough aquarium jargon terms for today. If I think of any more, I'll make another part of this series. But what do you guys think? Comment put these in the comments. Let me know. What kind of jargon, what kind of words have you heard when you're beginning Aquarist that you were just like, what does that mean? Also, what terms are, controversial? What terms do you say that other people are like, that doesn't mean that? I gotta know, guys. Shoot it in the comments. Let me know. Have a wonderful time, guys. I thank you so much for watching this video, and see you next time.